Hey everyone, picture this, a dusty summer afternoon, the kind where the air feels thick and the sun beats down like it's got something to prove. Out in the middle of nowhere, on a sprawling farm with fields stretching as far as the eye can see, a kid named Eli is kicking a beat-up soccer ball around, laughing to himself, not a care in the world. He's just a regular farm boy, maybe 16, with dirt smudged on his cheeks and a grin that says he's up to no good. The barn looms in the distance, old and weathered, its red paint peeling like it's holding on to secrets it doesn't want to share. Eli winds up for a big kick, aiming for a tree stump, but oops, his aim's off. Way off. The ball sails through the air, smacks the barn door with a loud thwack, and disappears inside. His heart sinks. That barn. It's his dad's sacred ground, the one place Eli's been told 1,000,000 times to stay out of. And now, his ball's in there, and he's gotta go get it. But what he finds inside? Oh, it's way more than a dusty old soccer ball. It's something that makes his pulse race, his hands shake, and his whole world turn upside down. Now, let's shift gears for a second. Across town, in a crowded bus rattling along a busy street, there's another story unfolding. Jamal, a black teenager with a quiet confidence and a backpack slung over one shoulder, is just trying to get home after a long day. The bus is packed, standing room only, and the air's thick with chatter and the hum of the engine. He's got a seat, though, one he snagged before the crowd piled in. Then he notices her, a pregnant white woman, struggling to keep her balance as the bus lurches. She's gripping the pole, her face tired but kind, and something in Jamal stirs. Without a second thought, he stands, offers her his seat, and flashes a small smile. She takes it, grateful, and they share a quiet moment, just two strangers in a sea of people. But then, as she settles in, she reaches into her bag, pulls out a folded piece of paper, and hands it to him. "Read this later," she says, her voice soft but serious. Jamal tucks it in his pocket, confused but curious. What's in that note? Why'd she give it to him? And why does it feel like his life's about to change in ways he never saw coming? These two moments, Eli's accidental kick and Jamal's simple act of kindness, might seem worlds apart, but they've got one thing in common. They're the start of something big, something unexpected, something that'll stick with you long after this video's over. Let's dive into Eli's story first. He's out there on the farm, the kind of place where time moves slow, where the days blend into each other with the rhythm of chores and open skies. His dad, Marcus, is a no-nonsense guy, the kind of farmer who's up before dawn and doesn't quit till the stars are out. That barn. It's his domain, a place he's always kept locked up tight, telling Eli it's just for storage old tools, hay bales, nothing special. But Eli's a curious kid, always has been. He's heard the stories, the whispers from neighbors about his dad's past, about things Marcus doesn't talk about. Maybe it's nothing, just small-town gossip. Or maybe there's truth to it. Either way, that ball's in the barn now, and Eli's not about to leave it there. He creeps toward the barn, the grass crunching under his sneakers, his heart thudding a little louder with every step. The door's ajar, just enough for the ball to have slipped through, and the darkness inside seems to swallow the sunlight whole. Eli hesitates. He knows he's breaking a rule, but it's just a quick in and out, right? Grab the ball, get out, no big deal. He pushes the door open, the hinges creaking like they're warning him to turn back. The air inside is cool, musty, and thick with the smell of old wood and something else, something metallic, sharp. His eyes adjust to the dim light, and there's his ball, sitting in the middle of the floor like it's waiting for him. But as he steps forward, his foot brushes against something else. Something that doesn't belong. He freezes, squinting into the shadows, and that's when he sees it, a box, half hidden under a top, with strange markings scratched into the wood. His fingers tremble as he reaches for it, his breath catching in his throat. What's in there? Why's it hidden? And why does it feel like the barn's holding its breath, waiting for him to find out? Meanwhile, back on that bus, Jamal's still holding that note in his pocket, his fingers brushing against it like it's burning a hole through his jeans. He's a good kid, always has been, helps his mom with groceries, keeps his grades up, stays out of trouble. But life hasn't been easy. Money's tight, his neighborhood's rough, and he's seen too many friends get caught up in things they couldn't escape. That seat he gave up. It wasn't just a seat, it was a choice, a small one, but the kind that says who he is. The woman's gone now, off at her stop, but her words are stuck in his head. Read this later. He wants to pull the note out right there, unfold it under the flickering bus lights, but something stops him. Maybe it's the way she looked at him, like she knew something he didn't. Maybe it's the weight of the moment, heavy with possibility. He leans back against the window, the city blurring past, and wonders what's waiting for him when he finally opens that piece of paper. Both these kids, Eli out in the fields and Jamal on that bus, are standing on the edge of something huge, something they never could have seen coming. For Eli, it's about that barn and what's inside it. Is it just old junk, like his dad always said? Or is it something else, something tied to the stories about Marcus, the ones nobody ever says out loud? For Jamal, it's about that note, a simple piece of paper that feels like it's carrying the weight of a whole new future. Two kids, two moments, two choices that are about to change everything. You're probably wondering what Eli found in that box, right? And what's written on that note Jamal's holding so tight? I get it, you want answers. But here's the thing, these stories aren't just about what happens next. They're about what it means to take a chance, to step into the unknown, to trust your gut when everything's telling you to walk away. Let's stick with Eli for a bit. That barn's been part of his life forever, but he's never really thought about it until now. It's always just been there, a big red shadow in the background, a place his dad disappears into when he thinks nobody's watching. Eli's heard his dad muttering to himself sometimes, late at night, when he thinks Eli's asleep, stuff about keeping it safe and nobody can know. Know what? Eli's never asked. He's a kid, not a detective. But now, standing in that barn, with the dust swirling in the slivers of light sneaking through the cracks, he's starting to wonder. He kneels by the box, his fingers tracing those strange markings. They're not random, they look deliberate, like someone carved them with purpose. His heart's pounding now, loud enough he's sure it'll wake the whole farm. He glances back at the door, half expecting his dad to barge in, but it's just him and the silence. He lifts the top, just a little, and sees something else, papers, maybe, or photos, stuffed inside the box like they're hiding from the world. He reaches in, his hand shaking, and pulls one out. It's a picture, old and faded, of a man who looks like his dad, but younger, standing next to someone Eli's never seen before. And in the background, something that makes his stomach drop. Back to Jamal. He's off the bus now, walking down his street, the note still burning a hole in his pocket. The neighborhood's alive with noise, kids playing, cars honking, music spilling out of open windows. But Jamal's in his own world, his mind spinning with questions. Who was that woman? Why'd she give him the note? And why's it feel like such a big deal? He stops under a streetlight, the yellow glow casting long shadows, and pulls the note out. It's just a piece of paper, folded tight, with his name, Jamal, written on it in neat, careful handwriting. His name. She knew his name. How? He didn't tell her. His heart's racing now, just like Eli's, as he unfolds the paper, the words blurring for a second under the dim light. What he reads makes his breath catch, his knees weak. It's not just a thank you. It's not just a note. It's something else entirely, something that could change everything he thought he knew about his life. These two stories, Eli's discovery in the barn and Jamal's note, are about to collide with truths neither of them expected. Eli's holding a photo that doesn't make sense, staring at a piece of his dad's past that's been buried for years. Jamal's clutching a note that's more than words on a page, it's a key, a map, a door to something he never imagined. Both of them are standing at a crossroads, their hearts pounding, their worlds shifting. What's in that box? What's on that note? And what happens when the truth comes out? You're gonna have to stick around to find out, because this is just the beginning, and trust me, you don't want to miss what comes next. Eli stood frozen in the barn, the faded photograph trembling in his hands. The dim light filtering through the cracks in the wooden walls cast eerie shadows across the man in the picture who looked so much like his dad, Marcus, but younger, sharper, with a hardness in his eyes Eli had never seen. The other guy in the photo, standing shoulder to shoulder with Marcus, was a stranger, tall, wiry, with a crooked smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Behind them, half-blurred but unmistakable, was a car, an old pickup with a dented fender and a license plate that didn't look local. Eli's stomach churned. Why was this photo hidden in a box, buried under a top in a barn his dad treated like a fortress? He flipped the picture over, hoping for a clue, and saw a date scrawled in smudged ink, August 1998. That was before Eli was born, before his mom passed, before their family became just him and Marcus against the world. His fingers brushed the edges of the box again, and he noticed more papers inside, letters, maybe, or documents, their edges yellowed and curling. He wanted to dig deeper, to pull everything out and make sense of it, but the sound of a truck engine rumbling in the distance snapped him back. His dad was home. If Marcus caught him in here, Eli didn't even want to think about the consequences. He stuffed the photo back into the box, his heart hammering as he pulled the top over it, trying to make it look untouched. The soccer ball still sat in the middle of the floor, mocking him. He grabbed it, his sneakers scuffing against the dirt as he bolted for the door, slipping out just as the truck's headlights swept across the yard. Eli ducked behind a stack of hay bales, his breath shallow, the photo's image burned into his mind. Who was that other guy? Why did his dad keep this stuff hidden? And what was that metallic smell in the barn, sharp and unfamiliar, like it didn't belong? As he crouched there, watching his dad climb out of the truck, Eli felt a mix of guilt and curiosity twisting in his gut. Marcus was a good dad, always had been strict, sure, but fair, with a laugh that could fill a room. But those late-night mutterings Eli overheard, the locked barn, the whispers from neighbors about Marcus's wild days before he settled down, none of it added up. Eli hugged the ball to his chest, his mind racing. He needed answers, but going back in that barn felt like crossing a line he couldn't uncross. Across town, Jamal was still standing under the streetlight, the note unfolded in his hands, his eyes scanning the words again and again, like they might change if he stared long enough. Jamal, you don't know me, but I know you. Meet me at the diner on 5th Street tomorrow, 3 p.m. Come alone. You deserve to know the truth. The truth? What truth? And how did this woman know his name? He hadn't told her, hadn't said a word beyond take my seat. His mind replayed the moment on the bus, her tired eyes, the way her hand shook slightly as she handed him the note, the weight of her words when she said, read this later. Jamal folded the paper carefully, slipping it back into his pocket, and started walking again, his sneakers slapping against the cracked sidewalk. The neighborhood was loud, alive with the usual chaos, but it felt distant, like he was moving through a dream. His mom would be waiting at home, probably heating up leftovers and asking about his day. How was he supposed to tell her about this? Hey, Mom, some lady on the bus gave me a creepy note that says she knows me. Yeah, that'd go over well. Jamal's life wasn't exactly full of mysteries. He went to school, helped at the corner store to earn a few bucks, and kept his head down. His mom, Carla, raised him on her own, working double shifts at the hospital to keep the lights on. She always said kindness was free, and Jamal took that to heart, giving up his seat was just who he was. But this note. It felt like a door opening to something bigger, something he wasn't sure he was ready for. As he turned the corner toward his apartment building, he thought about the woman again. She didn't look like anyone he knew, no one from school, no one from the neighborhood. Her clothes were nice, not fancy, but clean and put together, like she had a good job. And the way she'd looked at him, like she was seeing right through him, made his skin prickle. He pushed open the door to his building, the familiar creak of the hinges grounding him for a second. Tomorrow. 3 p.m. The diner on 5th. He'd go, because how could he not? But the thought of walking into that diner, not knowing what or who was waiting, made his chest tight. Back at the farm, Eli was in his room now, the soccer ball tucked under his bed like it was guilty of something. His dad was downstairs, clanging pots in the kitchen, humming an old country tune like everything was normal. But nothing felt normal to Eli. That photo was like a splinter in his mind, sharp and impossible to ignore. He lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every detail of the barn, the box, the markings, that weird smell. He thought about his mom, too. She died when he was little, and Marcus didn't talk about her much, just said she was the best thing that ever happened to him. Eli had her eyes, everyone said so, but he didn't have many memories of her, just flashes of a warm laugh and soft hands. Did that photo have something to do with her? Or was it about something else, something Marcus had buried long before Eli came along. He wanted to march downstairs and ask, just lay it all out, but the thought of his dad's face, stern, guarded, stopped him cold. Marcus wasn't a guy you pushed. Not about stuff like this. Eli rolled over, pulling his phone out to distract himself, but his mind kept drifting back to the barn. He'd always thought of it as just a building, a place for tools and hay and his dad's old tractor. But now, it felt alive, like it was hiding something that wanted to be found. He thought about sneaking back out there tonight, after Marcus went to bed, but the idea made his palms sweat. What if his dad caught him? Or worse, what if he found something he wasn't supposed to? The neighbors' stories came back to him, old Mr. Jenkins at the feed store, always going on about how Marcus used to run with a rough crowd, how he turned his life around when Eli was born. Eli never paid much attention to it before. Just gossip, he figured. But that photo, those markings, the locked barn, it was starting to feel like more than just talk. Jamal, meanwhile, was sitting at the kitchen table, picking at a plate of reheated spaghetti while his mom chatted about her day. He nodded along, trying to act normal, but the note in his pocket was practically screaming at him. He hadn't told Carla about it yet. She'd worry, ask a million questions, maybe even tell him not to go to the diner. But he had to go. He needed to know what the woman meant by the truth. Was it about his dad, who'd been gone since Jamal was a baby? His mom didn't talk about him much, just said he wasn't worth the tears. Or was it something else entirely? Jamal twirled his fork, his mind spinning. The diner on 5th was a quiet place, one of those old-school spots with checkered floors and waitresses who called you hun. He'd been there a couple times with his mom, but it wasn't exactly a hot spot. Why there? Why him? And how did that woman know his name? As the night stretched on, both Eli and Jamal were caught in their own storms of questions. Eli, lying awake in his room, could hear his dad's footsteps downstairs, the creak of the floorboards as Marcus moved through the house. Every sound made Eli's heart jump, like his dad somehow knew he'd been in the barn. He thought about that box again, the papers he hadn't had time to read, the strange markings that felt like a code he couldn't crack. He needed to get back in there, but the thought of sneaking past Marcus in the dark felt impossible. Jamal, on the other hand, was staring at the ceiling in his own room, the note now tucked under his pillow like it might disappear if he let it out of his sight. He kept replaying the woman's face, her words, the way she'd looked at him like he was more than just a kid on a bus. Tomorrow was coming fast, and with it, a meeting that could change everything. For both boys, the night felt endless, heavy with secrets and possibilities, each second ticking closer to truths they weren't sure they were ready to face. The night dragged on for Eli, each creak of the old farmhouse amplifying his nerves. He lay in bed, the soccer ball still hidden under it, his mind stuck on that photograph and the box in the barn. The image of his dad, younger and harder edged, next to that stranger kept flashing behind his eyes. Who was that guy? And why was that picture tucked away like a dirty secret? Eli's thoughts drifted to his dad's routine, how Marcus always checked the barn's lock before bed, how he'd get this faraway look sometimes, like he was carrying something heavy nobody else could see. Downstairs, the clinking of dishes had stopped, and Eli heard the familiar thud of his dad's boots on the stairs. He held his breath, half expecting Marcus to barge in and demand answers, but the footsteps passed, fading into the master bedroom. Eli exhaled, his heart still racing. He knew he couldn't just let this go. That box was calling to him, and the only way to quiet it was to go back. But sneaking out there in the dead of night, with his dad so close, felt like tempting fate. He rolled onto his side, staring out the window at the barn's dark silhouette against the starry sky. It looked bigger somehow, like it was daring him to come back. Across town, Jamal couldn't sleep either. The note under his pillow seemed to hum with energy, its words looping in his head, "You deserve to know the truth." What truth? He thought about his mom, Carla, and how she'd raised him to be cautious, to keep his head down in a world that didn't always play fair. She'd be furious if she knew he was even thinking about meeting some stranger at a diner. But Jamal couldn't shake the feeling that this was bigger than him, bigger than anything he'd ever stumbled into. He got up, pacing his small room, the streetlight's glow slipping through the blinds. He thought about his dad, a man he only knew from a single blurry photo his mom kept in a drawer. Carla said he'd left when Jamal was a baby, that he wasn't worth remembering. But what if this woman knew something about him? What if the note was a clue to a past his mom had locked away? Jamal stopped pacing, his eyes landing on the backpack he'd carried on the bus. Inside was a notebook where he jotted down his thoughts, poems, mostly, about life, about his neighborhood, about dreams he didn't dare say out loud. He grabbed it, scribbling the woman's words from memory, hoping writing them down might make them less heavy. It didn't. Back at the farm, Eli's curiosity was starting to outweigh his fear. He sat up, listening for any sign of his dad stirring. The house was quiet now, save for the hum of crickets outside. He slipped out of bed, pulling on his sneakers and a hoodie, his movements slow and deliberate. The barn was only a short walk from the house, but it felt like a mile. He grabbed a flashlight from his desk, its beam weak but enough to light his way. As he crept downstairs, avoiding the squeaky third step, he thought about his mom again. Her name was Lila, and though Eli's memories of her were fuzzy, he could still hear her voice sometimes, soft and warm, singing him to sleep. Marcus rarely spoke of her, but when he did, his eyes would soften, like he was seeing her all over again. Did that box have something to do with her? Or was it tied to the rumors about Marcus's past, the ones about late-night deals and shady friends? Eli pushed the back door open, wincing at the faint creak, and stepped into the cool night air. The barn loomed ahead, its red paint black in the moonlight. He clicked on the flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness, and started toward it, each step heavier than the last. Jamal, meanwhile, was wrestling with a different kind of decision. He sat on the edge of his bed, the note in his hand again, its edges already worn from his constant handling. He thought about telling his best friend, Trey, about it. Trey was the kind of guy who'd laugh it off, call it a scam, tell Jamal to toss the note and forget it. But Jamal couldn't. Something about the woman's eyes, the way she'd said his name, made him believe there was more to this. He thought about the diner on 5th, picturing its worn booths and the smell of coffee and bacon. He'd been there with his mom a few times, usually on her rare days off, when they'd split a plate of fries and talk about nothing important. The idea of walking in there tomorrow, alone, to meet a stranger who claimed to know him, it sent a shiver down his spine. He tucked the note back under his pillow and lay down, staring at the ceiling. His mom's voice echoed in his head, "Kindness is free, but trust is expensive." Was he being reckless, chasing this mystery? Or was this his chance to uncover something real, something that could change the path he'd been walking his whole life? Eli reached the barn, his flashlight beam trembling as it swept across the door. The lock was there, glinting in the light, but the door was still slightly ajar from earlier, just enough for the soccer ball to have slipped through. He hesitated, his breath visible in the chilly air. The memory of that metallic smell hit him again, sharp and unsettling, like it was warning him to turn back. But he couldn't. Not now. He pushed the door open, the hinges groaning louder than before, and stepped inside. The darkness swallowed him, the flashlight's weak beam barely denting it. He found the box again, still half covered by the top, its strange markings catching the light. He knelt beside it, his heart pounding so loud he was sure it'd wake his dad across the field. He lifted the top, revealing more of the box's contents, papers, envelopes, a small leather-bound book that looked like a journal. His fingers brushed against it, and he froze. Was this his dad's? His mom's? Someone else's? He opened it, the pages crackling with age, and saw handwriting he didn't recognize, tight, slanted letters filling the lines. Before he could read a word, a noise outside made him jump, a rustling, like footsteps in the grass. He clicked off the flashlight, plunging the barn into darkness, and crouched low, his pulse racing. Was it his dad? Or someone else? Jamal's morning came too fast. He woke to the sound of his mom banging around in the kitchen, the smell of coffee drifting through the apartment. He checked the time, 8 a.m. 7 hours until the diner meeting. He pulled the note out again, reading it for what felt like the 100th time. Come alone. The words felt heavier now, almost like a threat. He thought about his dad again, the man he'd never known. Carla had always been enough, more than enough, but there was a part of Jamal that wondered about the other half of his story. Was this woman connected to his dad? Or was it something else entirely, something tied to the life he and his mom had built. He got up, splashing water on his face, trying to shake the fog of sleeplessness. He couldn't tell Carla, not yet. She'd worry, maybe even forbid him from going. But as he got dressed, pulling on his favorite hoodie, he felt a strange resolve settling in. Whatever this was, he'd face it. He'd walk into that diner and find out what truth was waiting for him. Eli, still crouched in the barn, held his breath as the rustling outside stopped. The silence was worse, thick and heavy, like the world was holding its breath with him. He clicked the flashlight back on, keeping the beam low, and opened the journal again. The first page had a name, Lila. His mom. His heart skipped. Was this hers? He scanned the words, catching fragments. He's not who he says he is, and I can't tell Marcus yet. Who was she talking about? The stranger in the photo? Someone else? Eli's hands shook as he turned the page, but another sound, a low, deliberate creak from the barn door, made him slam the journal shut. He shoved it back into the box, his mind racing. Someone was out there. He could feel it. He grabbed the soccer ball, his only excuse for being in here, and backed toward the wall, his eyes locked on the door. The shadows seemed to move, twisting in ways that made his skin crawl. Was it his dad? Or had someone else been watching the barn, waiting for this moment? Jamal, now on his way to school, kept his head down, the note tucked in his pocket like a secret he couldn't shake. He passed the diner on his route, its neon sign dark in the morning light, and felt a pang of nervous energy. In a few hours, he'd be back here, sitting across from a stranger who claimed to know him. He thought about his mom again, about the sacrifices she'd made, the way she'd always protected him. What if this meeting was a mistake? What if it brought trouble to their door? But as he walked, the note's words burned in his mind, pulling him forward. For both Eli and Jamal, the day was unfolding like a storm on the horizon, dark, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. Whatever was waiting in that barn, whatever was written in that journal, whatever truth the woman at the diner had to share, it was coming for them, and there was no turning back. Eli's breath caught in his throat as he crouched in the barn, the soccer ball clutched tight against his chest. The creak from the door echoed in the silence, sharp and deliberate, like someone was testing it. His flashlight was off, leaving him in pitch black, the air thick with that metallic smell that seemed to cling to everything. His heart pounded so loud he swore it would give him away. Was it his dad out there, checking the barn like he always did? Or was it someone else, someone tied to that stranger in the photo, to the journal with his mom's handwriting, to the secrets Marcus had buried in this dusty old building? Eli's eyes strained against the darkness, searching for movement, but all he could make out were the faint outlines of hay bales and the box at his feet. The journal was still there, its pages whispering questions he didn't have answers to. He's not who he says he is, his mom had written. Who? The stranger. Marcus. Someone else entirely. Eli's fingers twitched, itching to grab the journal again, but another sound, a soft scrape, like a boot on gravel, made him freeze. Whoever was out there was close now, too close. He pressed himself against the barn wall, the rough wood digging into his back, and waited, every nerve screaming to run but his legs too heavy to move. Across town, Jamal was getting closer to the diner, his sneakers scuffing along the sidewalk as the clock ticked toward 3 p.m. The note in his pocket felt like it weighed a ton, its words burned into his brain, "You deserve to know the truth." He'd skipped his last class, something he never did, but the pull of that meeting was too strong. The diner's neon sign was lit now, buzzing faintly in the afternoon light, its red and blue glow reflecting off the glass windows. Jamal's stomach twisted as he paused across the street, watching people move in and out, waitresses balancing trays, an old man sipping coffee at the counter, a couple laughing in a booth. Was she already in there, the woman from the bus, waiting for him? How would he even find her? He checked his phone, 2:55 p.m. 5 minutes. He thought about his mom, Carla, and the way she'd looked at him this morning, like she could tell something was off. He hadn't told her about the note, hadn't told anyone, and now, standing here, he wondered if that was a mistake. What if this was some kind of setup? What if the truth was something he didn't want to know? But his feet moved anyway, carrying him across the street, the note's weight pulling him toward the diner's door like a magnet. Back in the barn, Eli's world shrank to the sound of his own breathing and the faint rustle outside. The door creaked again, slower this time, and a sliver of moonlight spilled in, cutting through the darkness. He saw it then, a shadow, tall and broad, moving just beyond the door. His dad. It had to be. But something about the way the shadow moved, slow, cautious, like it was searching, made Eli's blood run cold. Marcus didn't move like that. His dad was all heavy steps and purpose, not this creeping, careful pace. Eli's mind raced back to the photo, to the stranger with the crooked smile, to the rumors about Marcus's past. Had someone been watching the barn, waiting for a moment like this? He gripped the soccer ball tighter, his only alibi if he got caught, and inched toward the box, his hand brushing the journal. He needed to know more, needed to read what his mom had written, but the shadow was closer now, the door inching open wider. A low voice muttered something, too soft to make out, but enough to make Eli's heart skip. He ducked behind a stack of crates, the journal still in the box, and held his breath, praying the shadows would hide him. Jamal pushed open the diner's door, the bell above it jingling sharply, cutting through the hum of conversation and clinking dishes. The smell of coffee and fried food hit him, familiar but overwhelming, like it was trying to drown out his nerves. His eyes scanned the room, searching for the woman from the bus. Was she the one in the corner booth, her back to the wall, sipping tea? Or maybe the one at the counter, her coat draped over the stool? He didn't even know her name, just her face, tired, kind, with eyes that seemed to know too much. He checked his phone again, 3:01 p.m. He was late, but only by a minute. He took a step forward, his sneakers squeaking on the checkered floor, and felt every pair of eyes in the place turn to him. Or maybe that was just his imagination, his nerves twisting everything out of proportion. He slid into an empty booth near the window, his hands fidgeting with the note in his pocket. Come alone. He had, but now, sitting here, he felt more alone than ever. A waitress approached, her smile warm but tired. "What can I get you, hun?" she asked. Jamal mumbled something about a soda, his eyes darting to the door every time it jingled. Where was she? And what was this truth she thought he deserved? Eli's heart was a drum in his chest as the barn door swung open fully, the moonlight flooding in, casting long shadows across the dirt floor. The figure stepped inside, and Eli's breath hitched. It wasn't his dad. The man was taller, thinner, his face half hidden in the dark, but there was something familiar about him, something that made Eli's stomach drop. Was this the guy from the photo? The one with the crooked smile? The man moved slowly, his boots scuffing the ground, his head turning like he was looking for something. Or someone. Eli's hand tightened around the soccer ball, his mind screaming at him to stay still, to not make a sound. The man paused near the box, his shadow falling over it, and Eli's blood ran cold. Did he know it was there? Was he here for it? The man crouched, his fingers brushing the top, and Eli's eyes darted to the journal, still tucked inside. Lila's journal. His mom's words. Whatever was in there, this guy couldn't have it. Eli's body tensed, ready to move, to do something, anything, but the man's head snapped up, like he'd heard something outside. He stood, his movements quick now, and slipped back toward the door, disappearing into the night. Eli stayed frozen, his heart pounding, the journal untouched but burning in his mind. Who was that? And why was he here? Jamal's soda arrived, the glass sweating in the warm diner air, but he barely noticed. His eyes were glued to the door, his fingers drumming on the table. It was 3:10 now, and still no sign of her. Had she changed her mind? Or was she watching him, waiting to see what he'd do? He pulled the note out, unfolding it under the table, his eyes scanning the words again. I know you. How? He thought about his life, school, the corner store, helping his mom with groceries. Nothing about it screamed mystery. But that woman's face, the way she'd looked at him, said otherwise. He glanced around the diner again, his gaze landing on a woman in a green coat near the back. Was that her? She was facing away, her hair tucked under a scarf, but something about her posture felt familiar. He started to stand, his heart racing, when the bell jingled again, and a man walked in, older, with sharp eyes and a briefcase, his gaze sweeping the room like he was looking for someone. Jamal's breath caught. Was this who the woman meant? Or was he just another customer? The man's eyes locked on Jamal's for a split second, and Jamal felt a chill, like he'd been seen in a way he didn't understand. Eli didn't move for what felt like forever, his body pressed against the crates, the soccer ball still in his arms. The barn was silent again, the man gone, but the air felt charged, like a storm was about to break. He crawled back to the box, his hands shaking as he pulled out the journal. He needed to know what his mom had written, needed to understand why that man was here, why his dad kept this place locked up like a vault. He opened it again, the flashlight's beam trembling as it hit the page. "He's not who he says he is." The words stared back at him, sharp and accusing. Below them, another line, "If Marcus finds out, it'll break him." Eli's throat tightened. Break him? His dad was the strongest person he knew, the guy who could fix anything, who never backed down. What could be so bad it would break him? He turned the page, his eyes scanning faster now, catching words like debt and promise and danger. His hands froze as he heard another sound, not from the door this time, but from deeper in the barn, a low thud, like something too heavy shifting. His head whipped around, the flashlight beam swinging wildly. Was someone else here? Or was the barn itself trying to tell him something? Jamal was still watching the man with the briefcase, his heart pounding as the guy ordered a coffee and sat 2 booths away. The woman in the green coat hadn't moved, but Jamal could feel her presence, like she was part of this somehow. The diner felt smaller now, the walls closing in, the hum of conversation fading into a dull roar in his ears. He wanted to get up, to walk out, to forget the note and the woman and the truth she promised. But he couldn't. Not now. Not when he was this close. He took a sip of his soda, the cold fizz doing nothing to calm his nerves, and checked his phone again, 3:15. Where was she? Had he missed her? Or was the truth about to walk through that door, wearing a suit and carrying a briefcase? For both Eli and Jamal, the world was tilting, the secrets they'd stumbled into pulling them closer to a truth that felt bigger, darker, and more dangerous than they'd ever imagined. And neither of them was ready for what was coming next. Eli's flashlight beam danced across the barn's dark corners, chasing that low thud that had sent his heart into overdrive. The journal lay open in his lap, his mom's words, debt, promise, danger, burning in his mind like a warning he couldn't ignore. The air felt heavier now, the metallic smell sharper, almost suffocating. He strained his ears, listening for another sound, but the barn was silent except for the faint hum of crickets outside. Then it came again, a soft, deliberate scrape, not from the door but from the back of the barn, where the shadows were thickest. His stomach lurched. Was someone else here? Or was it just the old building settling? He swung the flashlight toward the sound, its weak beam catching a glint of something metal tucked behind a stack of hay bales. He crept closer, his sneakers silent on the dirt floor, and saw it, a trapdoor, half hidden under a pile of straw, its edges rusted but sturdy. His breath hitched. A trapdoor? In their barn? He'd lived on this farm his whole life and never knew it was there. His mind raced back to the journal, to his mom's cryptic words about someone not being who they seemed. Was this what Marcus was hiding? Eli's fingers brushed the cold metal handle, his heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. He wanted to pull it open, to see what was down there, but the memory of that stranger's shadow at the door stopped him cold. What if whoever it was came back? And what if they were looking for this? Across town, Jamal sat frozen in the diner booth, his soda untouched, his eyes darting between the man with the briefcase and the woman in the green coat. The man hadn't looked at him again, but that split-second glance had left Jamal's skin prickling, like he'd been sized up. The woman still hadn't turned around, her scarf hiding her face, but Jamal's gut told him she was watching, waiting. The diner's buzz, clinking plates, murmured conversations, the hiss of the coffee machine felt like it was closing in, making the air thick with tension. He checked his phone again, 3:20 p.m. The note in his pocket felt like a live wire, its words, "I know you," echoing in his head. He was about to stand, to approach the woman in the green coat, when the bell above the door jingled again. This time, it was her, the woman from the bus. She looked different now, her face less tired, her eyes sharper, scanning the room until they landed on Jamal. She didn't smile, just gave a small nod and started toward him. But before she could take another step, the man with the briefcase stood, his movements quick and deliberate, and intercepted her. They exchanged a glance, too brief to mean nothing, and Jamal's heart sank. Were they together? Was this a setup? The woman hesitated, her eyes flicking back to Jamal, and then she turned, heading for the door like she'd changed her mind. The man followed, his briefcase swinging, and Jamal's pulse raced. He couldn't let her leave, not without answers. Eli's hand hovered over the trapdoor's handle, his flashlight shaking in his other hand. The barn felt alive now, its shadows shifting like they were watching him. He thought about his dad, Marcus, sleeping in the house, oblivious to the fact that Eli was inches away from uncovering something he'd kept hidden for years. The journal's words, "If Marcus finds out, it'll break him," felt like a weight on his chest. What was down there? Something tied to his mom? To the stranger in the photo? To the rumors about Marcus's past, the ones old Mr. Jenkins whispered about at the feed store? Eli's fingers closed around the handle, the metal cold against his skin, and he pulled, just a little. The trapdoor creaked, resisting, but it budged, revealing a sliver of darkness below. A rush of damp, musty air hit him, carrying that metallic smell again, stronger now, mixed with something else, something sharp, like gasoline. His mind screamed at him to stop, to run back to the house, to pretend he'd never seen that box or journal. But then he heard it, a faint hum, like machinery, coming from below. His blood ran cold. Machinery? In a barn that was supposed to hold nothing but hay and tools? He pulled harder, the trapdoor groaning open, and aimed his flashlight down. A rusty ladder led into the dark, and at the bottom, he saw the faint outline of crates, dozens of them, stacked neatly, their surfaces glinting like they were made of metal. This wasn't storage. This was something else entirely. Jamal was on his feet now, his heart pounding as he pushed through the diner's door, the bell jingling behind him. The woman from the bus and the man with the briefcase were already halfway down the street, walking fast, their heads close like they were arguing. Jamal's sneakers slapped the pavement as he followed, keeping his distance but refusing to lose them. The note was still in his pocket, its words driving him forward. You deserve to know the truth. What truth? And why did it feel like the woman was trying to slip away? He thought about his mom, Carla, and how she'd tell him to go home, to stay out of trouble. But he couldn't. Not now. Not when he was this close to answers. The woman glanced back, her eyes catching his, and for a moment, he thought she'd stop, wave him over. But instead, she quickened her pace, the man matching her step for step. They turned into an alley, and Jamal hesitated, his breath catching. Alleys weren't safe, not in his neighborhood, but the pull of that note was stronger than his fear. He followed, his hoodie blending into the fading daylight, and saw them slip into a side door of an old brick building. The door shut with a heavy thud, and Jamal stood there, his heart racing, his hand clutching the note. What was this place? And why did it feel like he was walking into something he might not walk out of? Eli leaned over the trapdoor, his flashlight beam barely reaching the crates below. The hum was louder now, steady and mechanical, like a generator or something worse. His mind spun with possibilities, none of them good. Was this what his dad was hiding? Was this why Marcus locked the barn, why he never let Eli near it? The journal's words echoed again, danger. Eli's eyes darted to the barn door, still ajar, the moonlight spilling in like a warning. The stranger from earlier could come back any second, and if they found him here, with the trapdoor open, there'd be no explaining it away. He thought about his mom, Lila, and the journal in her handwriting. He's not who he says he is. Was she talking about Marcus? Or someone else, someone tied to whatever was down there? Eli's hand tightened on the flashlight, his other hand still gripping the trapdoor's edge. He wanted to climb down, to see what those crates held, but a new sound stopped him, a car engine, low and rumbling, approaching the farm. Headlights swept across the field, and Eli's heart leapt into his throat. He slammed the trapdoor shut, the clang echoing in the barn, and scrambled back to the box, shoving the journal inside. He grabbed the soccer ball and ducked behind the crates again, his breath ragged. The engine cut off, and he heard a car door slam. Footsteps crunched on the gravel, heavy and purposeful. Not his dad's truck. Someone else was here. Jamal pressed himself against the alley wall, his eyes locked on the door the woman and the man had disappeared through. The building was old, its windows boarded up, the brick crumbling in places. It didn't look like a place anyone would choose for a meeting, not a good one, anyway. His hand brushed the note in his pocket, and he thought about the woman's face on the bus, the way she'd looked at him like she knew something he didn't. Was she trying to help him? Or had he walked into a trap? He took a step toward the door, his hand shaking, and pushed it open just a crack. The voices stopped, and a shadow moved inside, quick and silent. Jamal's breath caught. Someone knew he was there. He stepped back, his pulse racing, and then the door swung open, revealing the woman from the bus. Her eyes widened when she saw him, but before she could speak, a hand grabbed her arm, pulling her back inside. The door slammed shut, and Jamal heard a lock click. He was alone again, the alley silent, but the weight of that note and whatever truth it promised felt heavier than ever. Eli's chest tightened as the footsteps outside the barn grew louder, gravel crunching under heavy boots. The car's headlights had gone dark, but he could hear voices now, 2, maybe 3, low and clipped, like they didn't want to be heard. He crouched lower, the soccer ball pressed against his chest, his eyes darting between the trapdoor and the barn door. The journal was back in the box, but he hadn't had time to cover it properly. If they came in, they'd see it. And if they found the trapdoor? Eli didn't want to think about what might happen. His mom's words rang in his head, if Marcus finds out, it'll break him. But what about him? What would finding this do to him? The voices stopped, and a shadow crossed the barn door, tall and broad, just like the one from before. Eli's heart stopped. Was it the same guy? Or someone new? The door creaked, and a flashlight beam cut through the darkness, sweeping across the barn. Eli ducked lower, his breath shallow, his mind screaming one question. What was his dad hiding down there, and who else knew about it? Eli's heart thundered in his chest as the flashlight beam swept closer, slicing through the barn's darkness like a blade. He was crouched behind the crates, the soccer ball his only shield, the journal's weight in the box beside him feeling like a bomb about to go off. The voices outside, low, urgent, at least 2 men, grew sharper, their words still too muffled to catch. The trapdoor was shut, but Eli could still hear that faint mechanical hum from below, a secret his dad had kept hidden his whole life. The journal's words, "He's not who he says he is, and if Marcus finds out, it'll break him," swirled in his head, mixing with the image of his mom, Lila, and the stranger in that faded photo. The barn door creaked wider, and the beam landed on the box, illuminating the top he'd failed to pull back properly. Eli's breath stopped. They'd see it. They'd know someone had been here. A voice, rough and unfamiliar, barked, "Check the corners." Eli's body tensed, his fingers digging into the soccer ball. He was trapped. But then, a new sound, his dad's voice, loud and commanding, cutting through the night. "Who's out there?" Marcus shouted, his heavy footsteps crunching toward the barn. The flashlight beam froze, then swung away, and Eli heard the men curse under their breath, their boots scrambling on the gravel as they retreated. A car engine roared to life, tires spitting dirt, and they were gone. Eli stayed still, his pulse racing, until he heard Marcus's steps at the door. The flashlight beam returned, but this time it was his dad's, steady and familiar. "Eli." Marcus's voice was sharp, laced with worry and something else, fear. Eli stood, his legs shaky, the soccer ball dropping to the ground. "I'm here," he said, his voice barely a whisper. Marcus stepped inside, his face half-lit, his eyes narrowing as they landed on the box. "What the hell are you doing in here?" he demanded, but his voice cracked, betraying him. Eli swallowed hard, the journal's words burning in his mind. He couldn't lie, not now. "I found something," he said, pointing to the box. "Mom's journal. A photo. Who were those guys, Dad? What's under the trapdoor?" Marcus's face went pale, his jaw tightening. For a moment, Eli thought he'd explode, but instead, Marcus sank onto a hay bale, his shoulders slumping. "You weren't supposed to see that," he said, his voice low. He took a deep breath, then told Eli the truth, a truth that made Eli's world tilt. The trapdoor led to a bunker, built years ago when Marcus ran with a rough crowd, storing equipment for a deal that went wrong. The stranger in the photo was a man named Ray, a partner who'd betrayed Marcus, leaving him to take the fall. Lila's journal wasn't about Marcus, it was about Ray, who'd lied about everything, dragging them into danger. Marcus had kept it hidden to protect Eli, to leave that life behind. But those men tonight? They were Ray's old crew, back to collect what they thought Marcus still owed. Eli's knees buckled. His dad wasn't a criminal, but he'd been running from one his whole life. Across town, Jamal stood frozen in the alley, the locked door of the old brick building staring back at him. The woman from the bus had been pulled inside, her wide eyes haunting him, the man with the briefcase a shadow at her side. The note in his pocket, "You deserve to know the truth," felt like a chain now, binding him to this moment. He banged on the door, his fist echoing in the quiet alley, but no one answered. His heart raced, his mind spinning with questions. Was this about his dad? His mom, Carla, had always said he wasn't worth knowing, but what if this woman knew different? What if the truth was bigger than that? He stepped back, scanning the building for another way in, when he heard footsteps behind him. He spun around, expecting the man with the briefcase, but it was Trey, his best friend, his face a mix of worry and frustration. "What are you doing, man?" Trey hissed. "I followed you from the diner. This place ain't safe." Jamal's mouth went dry. He hadn't told Trey about the note, but his friend's presence grounded him. "I have to know," Jamal said, pulling out the note and showing it to Trey. Before Trey could respond, the door creaked open, and the woman from the bus stepped out, alone. Her face was pale, her eyes darting to Jamal. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, but her voice was urgent, not angry. "But since you are, come with me. Now." Jamal followed her inside, Trey at his heels, into a dimly lit room that smelled of dust and old paper. The man with the briefcase was gone, but a table in the center held a stack of documents, photos, and a single envelope with Jamal's name on it. The woman, her name was Sarah, she said, sat him down and told him the truth. She wasn't a stranger. She was his dad's sister, his aunt, who'd been searching for him since his dad disappeared years ago. The note wasn't just a message, it was a key to a trust fund his dad had left, hidden to keep it from falling into the wrong hands. His dad hadn't abandoned him, he'd been caught in a deal gone bad, forced to run to protect Carla and Jamal. The man with the briefcase was a lawyer, but he worked for people who wanted that money, people tied to the same crew Marcus had once known. Sarah had tracked Jamal down, using his kindness on the bus to confirm he was the right person. Jamal's head spun, his hands shaking as he opened the envelope. Inside was a letter from his dad, written years ago, full of apologies and promises. Jamal's eyes stung, the words blurring. He wasn't just a kid from a rough neighborhood anymore, he was part of something bigger, something that could change his and his mom's lives. But then, the twist hit. Back at the farm, as Marcus finished telling Eli the truth, a phone rang Marcus's, tucked in his pocket. He answered it, his face darkening as a voice on the other end spoke. Eli caught only fragments. "Ray's back, he knows about the bunker, wants the rest." Marcus hung up, his eyes meeting Eli's, and in that moment, Eli saw something he'd never seen before, fear. Marcus grabbed the journal from the box, flipping to a page Eli hadn't reached. There, in Lila's handwriting, was a map, crude but clear, leading to a second location, a warehouse in town, the same brick building where Jamal now Saturday. Marcus's voice was grim. "This isn't over," he said. "Ray's crew thinks I've got something they want, and they're not stopping." Eli's heart sank. The men who'd come to the barn weren't just after his dad, they were after something bigger, something that connected to Jamal's truth, something hidden in that warehouse. As Marcus grabbed his keys, telling Eli to stay put, Eli knew he couldn't. He followed his dad to the truck, the journal tucked under his arm, determined to see this through. Jamal, still reeling from Sarah's revelation, didn't hear the car pull up outside the warehouse until it was too late. The door burst open, and the man with the briefcase stormed in, flanked by two others, men with hard faces, one of them with a crooked smile that matched the stranger in Eli's photo. "Ray." Jamal's breath caught as Sarah pushed him behind her, her voice steady but tight. "You're not taking it," she said, clutching the envelope. Ray's smile widened, his eyes flicking to Jamal. "You're the kid," he said, his voice cold. "Didn't think you'd be here." Before Jamal could respond, headlights flashed through the warehouse windows, and a truck screeched to a stop outside. Marcus burst in, Eli at his side, the journal in his hand. The room froze, the air thick with recognition as Marcus locked eyes with Ray. "You," Marcus growled, his voice raw with years of buried anger. Eli and Jamal exchanged a glance, their worlds colliding in a way neither expected. The truth they'd both chased, Eli's in the barn, Jamal's in the note, had led them here, to a warehouse where past promises and betrayals were about to explode. And in Ray's hand, glinting in the dim light, was something neither boy had seen coming, a key, one that matched a lock on the crates in Marcus's bunker, tying their stories together in a final, dangerous twist. The warehouse air was thick with tension, the dim light casting jagged shadows across the faces of Marcus, Ray, and the two boys caught in the middle of a past neither fully understood. Eli clutched his mom's journal, his eyes darting from his dad's clenched fists to the key in Ray's hand, a key that tied the barn's hidden bunker to this moment, to Jamal's note, to a truth that had been buried for decades. Jamal stood behind Sarah, his aunt, the envelope with his dad's letter trembling in his grip. Ray's crooked smile hadn't faltered, but his eyes were cold, calculating, as they flicked between Marcus and the boys. "You kept it all this time," Ray said, his voice low and mocking, twirling the key like a trophy. "Thought you could run forever, huh, Marcus?" Marcus stepped forward, his broad frame blocking Eli, his voice steady but laced with rage. "This ends tonight, Ray. You're not getting anything." Jamal's heart pounded, his mind racing to piece together the connection, his dad, Marcus, Ray, the trust fund, the bunker. The warehouse felt like a powder keg, and that key in Ray's hand was the spark. Eli's mind was spinning, the journal's weight grounding him as he watched his dad face Ray. The words he'd read, debt, promise, danger, made sense now, but they also raised new questions. His mom, Lila, had known about Ray's betrayal, had written about it in her journal, warning that it could destroy Marcus. But what was in those crates under the barn? And why was Ray here, now, after all these years? Eli glanced at Jamal, their eyes meeting for a moment, and he saw the same confusion, the same fear. They were strangers, but somehow their stories had collided, tied together by the men in this room and the secrets they'd kept. Marcus's voice cut through Eli's thoughts. "Give me the key, Ray," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Ray laughed, a sharp, bitter sound, and shook his head. "You think it's that easy? After what you did?" The man with the briefcase, Ray's lawyer, shifted nervously, his eyes darting to the door, while the other man, silent but menacing, cracked his knuckles. Sarah stepped forward, her voice firm. "This isn't just about you two anymore," she said, glancing at Jamal. "These kids deserve better than your old grudges." Jamal's grip tightened on the envelope, his dad's letter inside it a lifeline to a past he'd never known. Sarah's words echoed in his head, his dad hadn't abandoned him, hadn't run away. He'd been protecting them, hiding a trust fund meant for Jamal's future, money Ray and his crew had been chasing for years. But how did Marcus fit into this? Jamal took a step forward, his voice shaking but clear. "What's the key for?" he asked, looking at Ray. "And why do you want it so bad?" Ray's smile faltered for a second, his eyes narrowing. "Smart kid," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "It's for what's under that barn. Something your daddy and Marcus thought they could keep from me." Marcus's jaw clenched, and Eli saw something flicker in his dad's eyes, guilt, maybe, or regret. Before anyone could speak, the lawyer made a move, lunging for the envelope in Jamal's hand. Sarah shoved him back, but Ray's other man grabbed her, pinning her arms. Jamal froze, his heart racing, as Eli instinctively stepped forward, the journal raised like a shield. "Let her go," Eli shouted, his voice cracking but fierce. The room erupted into chaos. Marcus lunged at Ray, tackling him to the ground, the key skittering across the warehouse floor. The lawyer scrambled for it, but Jamal was faster, diving to grab it before he could. Eli swung the journal, catching the other man off guard, giving Sarah a chance to break free. The air was filled with shouts, the thud of fists, and the scrape of boots on concrete. Jamal clutched the key, its cold metal biting into his palm, and backed toward the wall, his eyes locked on Sarah. "What do we do?" he yelled, his voice barely audible over the fight. Sarah's eyes were wide but steady. "Get out of here," she said. "Both of you. Take the key and the journal and go. Eli hesitated, his dad still grappling with Ray, but Marcus's voice cut through the noise. Eli, go. Now. Eli grabbed Jamal's arm, pulling him toward the door, the journal and key in their hands, their hearts pounding as they ran into the night. Outside, the air was cool, the warehouse's dark silhouette looming behind them. Eli and Jamal sprinted toward Marcus's truck, their breaths ragged, the sounds of the fight fading but still too close. What's the key for? Jamal panted, holding it up as they reached the truck. Eli shook his head, his mind a blur. The bunker under the barn. Something my dad and your dad were hiding. Jamal's eyes widened. My dad. Eli nodded, flipping open the journal to the map his mom had drawn. It marked the warehouse and the barn, connecting them to a deal gone wrong years ago, a deal involving Marcus, Jamal's dad, and Ray. The crates in the bunker, Eli realized, weren't just equipment. They held evidence, documents, maybe money that could ruin Ray and his crew, evidence Marcus and Jamal's dad had hidden to protect their families. But Ray had never stopped looking, and now the boys held the key to it all. They climbed into the truck, Eli behind the wheel, his hands shaking as he started the engine. We gotta get to the barn, he said, his voice urgent. Before they do. Jamal nodded, clutching the key, his dad's letter still in his pocket. The drive was a blur, the countryside flashing by, the journal open on Jamal's lap. As they neared the farm, headlights appeared in the rearview mirror, Ray's car, closing in fast. Eli's heart sank. They weren't safe yet. He floored the gas, the truck rattling as they pulled into the farm's driveway. The barn loomed ahead, its door still ajar from Eli's earlier visit. They stumbled out, running for it, the journal and key their only leverage. Inside, Eli led Jamal to the trapdoor, his flashlight shaking as he pulled it open. The hum from below was louder now, the crates glinting in the dark. Jamal hesitated, the key heavy in his hand. What if it's not worth it? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Eli met his eyes, the journal's weight grounding him. It's the truth, he said. For both of us. They climbed down the ladder, the air cold and damp, the hum vibrating through the bunker. The crates were sealed, but the key fit perfectly into the lock on the largest one. Eli turned it, the click echoing like a gunshot. Inside were files, photos, contracts, ledgers, proof of Ray's crimes, tied to a deal Marcus and Jamal's dad had walked away from. There was money, too, stacks of it, and a note in Lila's handwriting, for Eli when he's ready. Eli's throat tightened. His mom had known this day would come. Jamal found another envelope, this one with his dad's writing, confirming the trust fund Sarah had told him about. But before they could process it, headlights flooded the barn above, and heavy boots hit the dirt floor. Ray's voice cut through the air. You kids think you can outrun me, he sneered. Eli and Jamal exchanged a look, the files and money in their hands, the truth finally in their grasp. But Ray was here, and he wasn't alone. Marcus burst into the barn above, his voice booming. Ray, it's over. The boys scrambled up the ladder, clutching the evidence, as Marcus faced Ray and his crew. The lawyer was there, his briefcase open, papers spilling out, but Marcus was ready. The cops are on their way, he said, his voice steady. You're done. Ray laughed, but it was hollow, his eyes darting to the trapdoor. Before he could move, Jamal stepped forward, holding up the files. This ends now, he said, his voice stronger than he felt. Sarah appeared at the door, her phone in hand, already dialing. Ray's crew hesitated, then bolted as sirens wailed in the distance. Ray lunged for the key, but Marcus was faster, pinning him down until the police arrived. The truth was out, Ray's crimes exposed, the trust fund safe, the bunker's secrets laid bare. As the cops took Ray away, Eli and Jamal sat on the barn steps, the journal and letter between them. Marcus joined them, his face tired but relieved. I'm sorry, he said to Eli. I thought I could keep you out of this. Eli nodded, his mom's words echoing in his mind. Jamal looked at Sarah, then at the letter from his dad. He didn't leave us, he said softly. He was protecting us. The boys looked at each other, strangers no more, bound by a truth they'd uncovered together. The takeaway was clear. Sometimes, the past comes knocking, but facing it with courage can set you free. As the sun rose over the farm, Eli and Jamal knew their lives had changed, not just because of the money or the truth, but because they'd found strength in each other, in the choices they'd made, and in the secrets they'd dared to unravel.